Hey kids, you're about to listen to a comedy podcast. That means that none of this is medical advice. If you need medical advice or medical care, please contact your doctor.
Welcome to the Jock Doc podcast,
where we discuss fitness and health and how to incorporate our modern understanding of science and medicine into our daily lives, but without it being so boring. I'm your host, drlondonsmith.com. I would like to begin by apologizing to our listeners. We've received some feedback about the excessive amount of technical medical terms that I've been using, such as arteriovenous nicking and cancer or madam. So I'll try to temper my terminology to a simpler one in the future. Here to help that is our producer, Cameron.
Dr. London, Dr. London, Dr. London. Help, help, help.
Okay, well, you said it 3 times. That is how to get me to show up.
Right, I figured it's sort of a Beetlejuice rule thing with doctors. Like, I have to say help 3 times, otherwise they don't take it seriously, because people, they might be like, oh, they're listening to the Beatles.
Yeah, and I'm still doubting what, like, I don't know if it's the Beatles right now.
Right now it's not the Beatles. Help, help, help. Dr. London, we've got some work to do on the Jock Doc University.
Right.
Let me remind our listeners, Dr. London and I started our own college, and we're establishing everything about it. You know, a couple things we know about it. It is primarily a party school, mostly focused on surprise parties and sort of senior citizen retirement parties. And we also have the mascot, which is sort of an elderly, crippled robot. The Jock Doc non-ambulatory robot. But we actually have to figure out the athletics program, like the teams that we're going to focus on. Some colleges are football colleges, some are basketball colleges, some are baseball colleges. Some are like toaster strudel contest colleges. That's like, you know, those contests at those like toaster strudel conventions where you try to cook it at the perfect amount.
Yeah, I see you've seen the lanyards behind me from I went last weekend.
What are our athletics programs going to be?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I've been working on this. Okay, so remember how part of our university, I guess, area got flooded really bad?
Yes,
I left
we left the hose on.
The faucet.
Yeah.
Yes, the faucet. Yeah.
The faucet in every bathroom, kitchen, whatever, is just a hose that we've kind of run from outside.
Yeah, and you poke a hole in the side of it and then run a little smaller hose.
It's plugged into the Bass Pro Shop that is next door.
Yes. And by the way, we love Bass Pro, and I think this is a good promotion for them.
We are so thankful for the water they provide us.
Yeah.
But we know that it's fine with them because bass love water.
They love that stuff. Yeah. So, what I've noticed is that there are sports that involve big amounts of water. Okay. So I'm thinking, now I know that our school is technically located in a desert, but what if we got like air conditioners and like fans and stuff and made it cold enough to have hockey? Hockey's our sport.
Oh, wow. Okay, so instead of just freezing it like a traditional way, we do it via like air conditioners?
This is me. What traditional way would you take a flooded outside area?
I don't know. But there's no way that, you know, when they convert like a basketball court to a hockey arena, that it's just that they turn the AC down and then figure it out later. But I don't know.
Yeah, you say there's no way, but I'm not hearing an alternative. It's just like constructive criticism, I guess, is what I'm looking for here. I'm just thinking, let's do that. Maybe I guess we'll get some ice to pour into it.
I think that's part of it. You need to dump some ice just from the fridge or whatever. Okay, here we go. Let's put a couple of fridges around the room and then just sort of tape down the ice dispenser button. And just have that run overnight before a big hockey match or practice or whatever.
Yeah, so that's our sport. We're gonna. I don't know that we'll have the ice layer ready this year or next year.
That's the hockey coach's problem.
Yeah,
Like once the ice is on is it a field, the hockey field? Then that's not my issue anymore.
Well, it's a rink is usually what we'd use, but
I don't know. It's more of a field to me.
It's definitely geographically the way it's looking now is it's floodplains, I believe would be the term. So
okay, yeah. So the hockey floodplains. Once it's in the coach's hands, we don't have to worry about it anymore. I do want to pitch real quick alongside hockey. I think this podcast and our brand is heavily every 3 to 4 episodes.
Yeah, well, that's just like we've got a lot of money riding on that.
Well, it's a huge part of our lives. We're just talking about what's going on. We're conveying the news as we see it. And the news today and yesterday and the day before is my dog died in a dog fighting fight.
Yeah. Yeah, you say it like you only have one dog, but yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, but it's still my dog.
Yeah.
I didn't say my only dog. I just said my dog.
Yeah. But yeah, one of your dogs did pass away, and so
if I said my son died in a dog fighting fight, that doesn't convey that I only have one son.
Okay, I guess not. It does a little bit imply it, but I can see for anyone who knows you, they know that you've got so many dogs. And
well, it's just I literally sent out that exact email. My son died in a dogfighting fight, and no one questioned it. No one was like, "Wait, I thought you had more sons than that." Like no one even opened it. I think.
I guess I didn't send a lot of responses to that email. You're right. Okay, no, I'll give you this one. I think it's easier to give you this one. But so yes, we have dog fights. Okay, I talked to Gen Alpha the other day. Duck, duck, goose. But for us, we got to get the real things. Okay?
Like actual ducks and geese?
Yeah, I think just one goose is all you need for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of ducks for this game to work.
Is that not considered cheating? Because you know in advance who the goose is going to be.
Well, I get like seniors might know that, but I don't know if the freshmen will know that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's sort of a learned thing. So Duck Duck Goose does work. Okay, I think that covers it, right?
Yeah. That's our university's sports section. Yeah, that's our niche, and everyone's going to come out to the games. It's going to be so much fun once we get that floodplains frozen over.
Yeah, so come out soon and see the Jock Doc non-ambulatory robots, hockey games, dogfighting games, or Duck Duck Goose games.
All right. And later, Cameron tells me we can expect a special guest.
That's right, Dr. London.
Great, but before we move on, I would like to address a bit of listener feedback. So for a long time, our listener demographic was primarily composed of anteaters and uncle drinkers. But in our efforts to cater to them, we found that we were neglecting the many bot accounts that download our podcast. This is from a bot on TikTok. It's a comment on our response to, what is your favorite thing to eat at Taco Bell? At the Renegade said first, bros just be yappin'. And then they responded themselves saying, it's satire, end quote. So, thank you so much for this feedback. And I like this. This listener has the insight because it does, to the average, not as even smart as person, they would think that we're just talking whatever stupid thing comes to our mind. They would, like, we're just blabbing, yapping on, but it's actually satire.
That's a lot of what we're talking about is sort of a critique of culture itself. So, for example, when I stumble over my words, that's me sort of critiquing sort of like, kind of like dumb people who can't like talk good.
Yeah, I've heard of, yes, sorry. Yeah, I've heard of them. And you're like that?
Yeah.
In this, you're making fun of that?
Yeah, and then like when Dr. London tries to give actual legitimate medical advice. He's sort of, doing a parody of this one doctor he knew this one time when he was a kid. It's a very specific character, but he nails it. The impression is uncanny.
Yeah. And it's just...
I'm not going to say uncanny, because it's really more of like a Dana Carvey, like doing George Bush kind of thing, where it's really more that he captures the vibe, not so much like the actual voice or whatever.
And then put a layer on top of it of like, oh, okay, I see what he did there. It's
right,
trackable.
It's exaggerating these things that are associated with, in your case, this doctor you knew once as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think
to say that I knew him,
really, really good acting work. I mean, just great character work.
So and just to say, this doctor is the one that I saw him through a window, I think, as he was, like, we were driving by the hospital, saw him through a window, and it was such a character that I was like, okay, let's go to med school. Let's study for this. Let's get serious.
And then when that didn't work out, you were like, I've got to Santa Claus this guy, which, of course, if you kill someone, step into their clothing, you sort of become them, no matter how much you shave and no matter how much you work out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you so much for that feedback. Next is this is a TikTok comment on a response to Keanus Reeves. At Ethuan said, quote, "What is your favorite thing to use to rob a bank?" End quote. So thank you so much for this feedback. So I want to correct something here, okay? They aren't things. They're people. You can't pull off a heist without people, okay? And you got to value them.
We try not to dehumanize our, assistants, the people who help us with things. In this case, it's our children. It's my son. And so to answer your question of, what is my favorite weapon to use in like a bank robbery, it would be my son, because no one's really expecting him to come in and then just sort of talk to the teller and be like, oh, I wish I knew what money looked like. Teller's a sucker. And then suddenly the kid, has a gun.
Yeah, I'd say...
Or a hammer, depending on what state you're in.
I was going to say, like, the first one we pick for our team is usually a patsy. But yes, it's the same. Yeah, your son. Someone to take the fall. You got to have a fall guy. And so usually our first...
Oh, yeah. Oh, my son is going to jail if we're pulling this off correctly.
Yeah, prison. Federal prison.
Oh, yes. Yeah, federal prison. But also, guess what's at federal prison? 3 meals a day, regular exercise, education. Kind of sounds like his life on the outside. So really nothing is happening except for a successful heist.
Yeah, people don't realize this. So the prison industrial system, actually, it costs so much money for the upkeep, and that's because they give them luxury. Okay?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. In America?
If I could?
In the US?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh, please. Yeah, and like Cameron said, they actually, and it's not even a joke, they actually do feed you there.
I heard of a prisoner once who got a sandwich. It was an open-faced sandwich, like there wasn't the 2 slices of bread.
But yes, no, it's a sandwich.
But
that's still a sandwich.
Carbs are so bad for you. So
yeah,
they were just doing him a favor at that point.
Yeah. So hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for that feedback. And now for today's medical topic, renal artery stenosis, or renovascular hypertension. Stenosis is the medical term for a clogged artery, and renal refers to the kidney. So renal artery stenosis is a clogged kidney artery, which causes a decrease in blood flow to the juxtaglomerular apparatus. And that's important because that apparatus is a part of the body with sensors to regulate blood pressure. So that clogged artery results in decreased blood flow to that spot, and that makes the body think that there's less blood in the body, so it activates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system to, among other things, squeeze the blood vessels, leading to higher blood pressure. Okay, and so this is the most common cause of secondary hypertension, or high blood pressure.
So this is sort of similar to how if I press that button that turns that red light on in your house, that you instantly pee yourself. You know how I was running that sort of like Pavlov's dog experiment?
Yeah, and you were associating all the times that I would pee myself, and you're like, oh, I can catch this on a rhythm.
Oh, yeah, no, I could kind of figure out, 30 seconds before when you were about to go to the restroom. And I would use that time to like show you a picture of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, or maybe of like a scene in a movie like Saw or something where it's all red.
Yeah, honestly, the Rudolph thing worked most of the time. Like, I love seeing that guy.
Yeah. So you're just
he was actually picked on. They bullied him.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way that he tells it. Other people say a lot of different things.
Well, and I get that and I started to go off on it, but like he really did, save Christmas effectively that one time.
Oh no, that's great. That's fine. But I think there's just this narrative that he was this underdog and not this sort of like extremely privileged, young reindeer that was sort of put on a high pedestal from a very young age. Oh, he was bullied. Okay, yeah. That's not what I've heard. I've heard that he was doing the bullying, but
renal artery stenosis
allegedly
is caused by atherosclerosis most of the time, and most often in elderly men, and occurs bilaterally, that's both sides, in a third of patients. Another cause of renal artery stenosis is fibromuscular dysplasia, which is the cause usually seen in young females, and this type is bilateral, that's both sides, in half of patients. Clinically, patients with renal artery stenosis will present with sudden onset of high blood pressure without a family history of that high blood pressure. And that high blood pressure is often severe, potentially malignant, and is refractory to medical therapy. So, because, once again, it's the body being told there's not enough blood flow through here. And because of that decreased blood flow to the kidneys, you're also going to get decreased kidney function.
And you said young female earlier, and a good joke I had would be, sounds like one of Rudolph's girlfriends. Because the whole thing about how Rudolph, like once his girlfriend hits 25, he's dating some like Victoria's Secret model. She hits 25 and suddenly they break up and he's on to someone else. Oh, but he won an Oscar. Oh no, he won an Oscar.
Like, what are you just gonna? This ageism is a problem, and I think like maybe like if you find love however you find it, that's great. Like I wish I could find. Rudolph like actually did save Christmas though. Like actually did do it.
No one is denying that.
And I'm sorry to go back to that every time, but that's actually the truth of it.
Fine. I mean, I'll find it. I'm just gonna leave
and it's
it
facts.
Alone.
And it's facts. So abdominal bruit, which is whenever you listen with a stethoscope, you can hear the sound of the blood going through the blood vessel, right upper quadrant, left upper quadrant, or epigastrium. It's present in 50 to 80% of patients with renal artery stenosis, and it's especially common in patients with that fibromuscular dysplasia I mentioned. Renal arteriogram is the gold standard for diagnosing renal artery stenosis, but contrast dye can be toxic to the kidneys, so do not use it in patients with renal failure. Okay, you want to watch out for those kidneys. Magnetic resonance angiography, that has high sensitivity and specificity, but it is contraindicated in patients with metallic clips, pacemakers, and other implants because it's magnetic resonance angiography, MRA. So don't want the metal stuff involved. The magnetic dye used in MRA is not nephrotoxic, so it can be used in patients with that renal failure I mentioned. Spiral CT angiography may also be used, but the contrast used can once again be toxic to the kidneys. Duplex Doppler ultrasonography to the renal arteries, and that's the kidney arteries, and contrast-enhanced CT scan may also be helpful in some cases. Initial treatment for renal artery stenosis is typically with revascularization with percutaneous transluminal renal angiography, and if this treatment is unsuccessful, patients may opt for surgery via bypass. Additionally, conservative medical therapy with ACE inhibitors and calcium channel blockers may be tried alone or in combination with those aforementioned revascular procedures. So, and that's the bulk of renal artery stenosis and the effects of those clogged arteries in the kidneys.
I just don't see the point of protecting him when he's already so powerful.
Yeah, it's just, I guess I'm just a Rudolph stan. I guess that's all I don't see that as a problem. Like, I mean, yes, problematic a little, but not whatever. We can move on. Hello there. My name is drlondonsmith.com. This is our producer, Cameron.
Yes.
Who is, what was your name?
This is Dr. David Plimpton, PhD.
Okay.
Yes.
And how do you spell that last part, the PhD part?
PhD. Period.
Okay.
P as in P?
P as in P.
H as in
H as in H.
H as in H.
D as in D.
And then,
some would say it's a degree piled higher and drier than a BS degree, but I would say it's a very good degree. Very good degree. Sir?
I just want to make sure. That was a joke, right?
Correct. Yes. I was transcending a level of humor, perhaps. Yes. Oftentimes, I find myself being humorous, even though, sometimes there's sort of this lower tier. If you think about David Hume's
and we all do.
And which we all do from time to time. Humor is sort of...
And remind me, David Hume's, is he the one with the mustache? Or was he... I'm trying to think of... Was he the... Did he wear a toupee or a traditional wig?
He was Scottish. So I suppose if there was a traditional garb in the 18th century, he had kind of a... he was a toupee. A toupee guy. I think
I was thinking of someone else.
That's okay. Dr. Lennon, I think you're maybe thinking of Mr. Huffer, like the guy who competitively huffs glue.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Well, I'm curious, what brings you here today?
Well, I have often found that there are certain underappreciated elements of philosophical undertakings that don't oftentimes get mentioned in medicine or scientific journals. Perhaps unfairly. And I just think we have such philosophers, such as myself, has such a wide range of gifts that are oftentimes just sort of viewed as, one might say, blabbermouthing. But what I have found is that there's anywhere from existentialism to metaphysics to epistemological dealings, that there are really lots of applications in the real world, though many people don't consider these quote-unquote real subjects.
Yeah, no, it's... it's super... Yeah. No, I'm loving... Actually, Cameron, I guess you go on, because I want to say I had something.
Well, I was just going to say, would you say that philosophers today are not appreciated like they should be? Because I always hear people say, like, oh, stand-up comedians are modern-day philosophers. But to me, that's a branding issue, because no, they're stand-up comedians.
Yes.
And so many comedians are wondering, like, why is attendance down? Why aren't people going to my shows? Well, if they think you're a philosopher, they don't want to spend money on that.
Mm-hmm. I do see that as a mislabeling issue, certainly.
And do you just feel like you're not as appreciated as some of the great stand-ups of the day? So, Daniel Tosh, the progressive insurance lady,
Matt Rife.
Good.
Yeah, Matt Rice.
Flo.
Yeah, Flo.
It's interesting. I have sort of come to this conclusion that, philosophers are also comedians. I would say philosophers are more comedians than that requisite to be true.
Yes. Okay.
And it's interesting because, philosophy is filled with humor. In and of itself, it doesn't need this expressive sort of performative medium to express itself. And I find that is sort of a core virtue issue with stand-up comedians, as you have said. is that there's this need for being performative, but philosophy doesn't need to have this performative element to it. It can
it doesn't need to put on this mask because it's already funny by default.
Exactly.
It's already interesting.
It's implicit.
Like when I think of like Plato's Cave, I am laughing my ass off.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's so
funny.
Yeah.
They're just seeing shadows. They're stupid. They're so stupid.
Basically chained.
Oh my god. It's basically like Dumb and Dumber, where it's like they're stupid, but I'm observing it from like a smart person angle.
I think perspective is very important to take into consideration, because philosophy sort of sits outside of everything, but it's commenting on everything that's really where the juxtaposition takes place. That's so fascinating to me that you bring that up, because I have read through, Aristotle's tragedy I find so fascinating, but Aristotle never really wrote a comedy. And so I've actually taken it upon myself to write an Aristotle comedy. Are you sure? Well, one in which could really encompass sort of what Aristotle truly meant, if I were to put myself as a contemporary in his shoes, of course. I could go on. I don't want to impose.
Yeah, okay. Because so you say, because like sometimes people come on to promote a book that they've written, but you're coming on to promote sort of this book that you have yet to write.
Yeah, to some degree, yeah, certainly. So, to some degree, I would say I don't know if I feel an existential push to publish my work in that way.
Right. I've similarly felt like this sort of lack of existential push to like do my laundry. Sometimes I feel lack of existential push to like pay my taxes,
That's very transcendentalist of you as well, as you know. That's so interesting. It's fascinating. Go on.
Man.
Go on.
I gotta go to your lectures.
Comedy shows. Call them comedy shows.
I thought of that.
Fill that void. All these people who are looking for philosophy end up at, like a Patton Oswalt show. And just these wires are crossed.
It's interesting. There's a lot of layers of complexity that you can bring to that and juxtapose. I'm not opposed to that. In fact,
you're juxtaposed.
I'm not juxtaposed to the opposition. Yeah, right. It's, I might actually do that. My father is such a big fan of comedy as well, and maybe he would show up. Let's see, if I were to endeavor,
who's your dad? You always hear about these people who it's like, they're really into comedy and they have these kids who are really into intellectual pursuits. And they're like, "What? I didn't raise a kid like this." And they become stage parents trying to force their kids into like sketch or something like that.
Yes. Traditionally, that hasn't been for me. That hasn't been who I am. If we want to go into self, I don't want to get too Cartesian on everyone here. But
oh gosh, just even the concept of self will make me kind of trip out.
Certainly. I just, I don't want to go into my issues involved with my father, but it is interesting. It is interesting that how there's sort of this backlash of the offspring tend to go against what the parents have sort of dictated as their lifestyle. And it does kind of oscillate in this interesting way, right? Where it's sort of, this alternation of, rebelliousness and steadfast attention, right? You have these doctors and lawyers, and then you have, your artists and vagabonds or so forth. And it seems to almost alternate perfectly from one generation to the next. So like my grandfather was certainly more of an academic than my father ever was, interestingly enough.
And that's, same story with me, because my father was a podcast bomber. So it's sort of like an abortion clinic bomber, but it's specifically
that's the easiest comparison. Yeah,
I feel like that's the easiest comparison because that's what he always says. But it's targeting specific podcast studios, and
certainly.
Wouldn't you know it?
Right,
what's my
right.
job? I'm a podcaster.
It's okay. No, I think
not really
snowboarding
what
and
I do.
podcasting are so there's so much crossover there. I just think that's it's so. I was just thinking. Sorry, someone told me today to Schraub the gnarly pow, and I think they were talking about snowboarding. Just that generational trauma is interesting.
I don't know. That sounds. I mean, like I've only taken so many philosophy classes before, but like I feel like I heard it in a lecture there. The gnarly. They would use the word gnarly a lot to describe. You know what? I'm thinking of a comedy show. I was at an open mic. I get them confused
so fascinating.
So much.
That blend, that sort of that rich blend of culture that we're kind of all. It's circulating throughout all of our lives. We're all sort of witnessing it as it's happening. It's so fascinating.
It's definitely, it is one of those things where philosophy is so funny and comedy is so philosophical, where when I'm watching something that should be cracking my butt off, something like Paul, like the Seth Rogen movie where he voices a little alien and he's hanging out with the redhead guy from Shaun of the Dead. A movie like that
holds his breath to be invisible. Holds his breath to be invisible.
Oh, yeah, and he holds his breath to be invisible. I'm sitting there like, well, doesn't this sort of hark back to, I think, therefore I am. Are you still there if you're holding your breath? And thus restricting oxygen to your brain, thus not allowing you to think properly, and you're invisible. And these kind of things stress me out, and then I, break the DVD. Where was I going with that? Dr. London?
Well, that's more or less... Because when I can never tell anymore, really, because of the crossover. I go to see a movie and they call it a comedy. I watch The Other Guys, right? This classic philosophical debate of, someone who they first of all, it's a buddy comedy. It's got two different psyches almost joined together, and I'm sitting there so stressed because like.
Right, trying to grapple with these sort of larger ideas. For me, it was just, okay, well, The Other Guys implies the existence of guys. Mm-hmm. And even when the movie established that already, that's still just like quirked my shit
freaked
up.
My entire, most of my being. Like, and I'm sitting there in the theater coughing up because I'm also like eating a lot of popcorn and I don't want to pay for a drink. So I'm eating this popcorn and I'm starting to choke a little bit. It's just so dry. And like, even though I try to get a lot of extra butter.
What do you think of Aim for the Bushes? Well, I had seen that movie. I thought that line really kind of struck me in a way. Do you know the part in which I'm speaking of? The part of the movie?
The part where they aim for the bushes? Or they try to. But it's in their heads?
They try to. And I sort of thought symbolically, I mean, what can we take away from aiming for the bushes, right? Because oftentimes we sort of think we're in control, and we have targets in mind. And when we're standing far away from said target, we oftentimes don't really know just how far away it is, how long it will take to get there. Does that sort of resonate?
Can I confess something here?
Please, go on.
Like, I've literally before thought that I was in control. I really thought it. And like, looking back, I realized, I'm trying to aim for these bushes and I think I'm on my way. But in reality, I'm The Rock and I'm bald and and it's mostly, there's just hit the ground. So, metaphorically, philosophically speaking, like I was in the drive-thru trying to order something, but like that's sort of what my mental picture was. Like I was like, okay, I do want a spicy chicken sandwich, but I don't want pickles on it. And I know that's unconventional, that's weird, that's aiming for the bushes a little bit, but
yeah, you were sort of operating under the rock zone.
Yeah, that's what the rock zone.
Yeah. This is also, you hate Vin Diesel so much when you're
yeah,
because he's mad that you stole his franchise.
Yeah, and also it was something about wrestling.
Probably some steroid stuff. Now, Dr. Plimpton, I got to ask, what is your PhD in? What are you a doctor of?
Philosophy, which some would say is
I would not have guessed. Okay. Okay. I'm trying to reframe my whole perspective on you now, because I thought you were a stand-up comic. Like, I thought you had your PhD in stand-up comedy. But I'm... Huh.
The wires get crossed so easily. What was your thesis?
My thesis was on Jean-Paul Sartre. I wanted specifically...
I was just about to say that same thing. That same thing that you just said. I was just about to say
Jean-Paul Sartre?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Jean-Paul Sartre, a French, early modern, neoclassical postmodern philosophy certainly interests me, I would say, the most, out of any particular niche.
That's making me crack up. I'm not really a laugher, but that's making me like absolutely.
Oh yeah, Cameron,
up, like
if he could laugh, he would laugh so much at this stuff. You can see like the twinkle. Yeah. It's not in his eye, but like you can almost see that he would think of it being funny to laugh at.
That's interesting. Well, I think there's there's a metaphorical jumping of the gun that we all do, right? When you take that example just now. Cameron, if you sort of think, oftentimes, if you believe in kind of this manifestation of your own behavior, right? If you say, there's this sensibility of wanting to laugh about you, and we can pick up on that sense. And that's more psychological. I wouldn't even say that's philosophical, but there's philosophical undertones for that, for sure.
Okay, so it's a little funny.
Yeah, it's not as funny as philosophy, but psychology is like kind
of funny. It's a little funny.
It's interesting. It's different.
Well, because like Freud is a psychologist, and everything he said was pretty funny. Penis? The cigars of penis
envy.
Can you say that? Can you say that today?
I can't. No, because he already
phallic
did.
envy.
So I think
phallic envy.
Yeah, that would be
more appropriate.
So DJ Dylan, if you could censor that, if you can go ahead and censor that. Nope. Cameron can't say that.
Yeah. We can say phallic. You were saying phallic envy. Let's say phallic trendy.
Phallic trendy. It's so interesting. It's fascinating.
That is so interesting.
Just because penises are really on trend.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, okay.
Butts were really big in the 2010s, and then the 2020s are all about the
penis. Yeah. Well, it's like, and a lot of people don't realize this about the male genitalia, but like they're on like half the population.
Yeah, the human male penis.
Yeah, like a lot of people have it. And like the other half, I think, like are aware of it too. Like culturally, I think everyone kind of has some idea about it. So it is one of these things that kind of permeates the culture, and you're like, okay, this is sort of a baseline fact that we can all agree on, and riff on it philosophically.
I mean, I agree with the Platonic form of a phallus. I don't know if I always believe that in what you're saying.
If philosophically we all have a penis?
Well, I believe that there's a form of the penis that exists. However, individually, there isn't a cohesiveness philosophically between every penis.
There's not one big universal penis that we're all connected to. I understand that.
There is only in its form.
I would disagree.
Only in the higher form, only in the Platonic form, I would say.
And that
I would
Platonic,
gesture say.
So, yeah. And that's the shadows, right? That's Shadow's Cave?
It's Plato's work as well. But Plato's Platonic forms, every sort of physical object has a higher...
Now I get the joke. The shadows are like dicks.
Can you imagine? And you have to imagine. That's how it would work, I think.
That's fascinating.
If I follow
I'm laughing right now. That's so funny.
Thank you.
God, philosophy really is comedy.
Oh man,
and not the other way around.
You know what? Let's end on a laugh.
No, definitely not the
Let's
other way
end
around.
on a laugh because we're like I'm kind of riding high right now.
I'm kind of losing it. Yeah.
Yes. So
it's interesting.
Is there?
Can I pitch something real quick?
I was gonna end on a laugh, so Okay, I guess.
Okay, so the shadows. So on one side, a penis starts sticking out, and then on the other, people are like, "Is that? Whoa, what is that?" You let that sit. You let it sit for a beat. You want to rest. A lot of times in comedy, the payoff is better when you can rest for a beat. And then you know what the payoff is? Penis on the other side. Boop 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 boop. And then they touch in the middle.
The penis touches another penis?
Yes.
Interesting.
Because philosophically, when you think about it, like, if you exist, it sort of implies the existence of the other and the else. Because nothing exists by itself. This is sort of like quantum mechanics. We talk about almost every single episode, the double slit experiment.
The two slit experiment, I'd actually prepared to talk about that, but I figured it was already over discussed. So let's get to
it is talked about on almost every single episode. It's when you shoot protons at like a slit or whatever, then it becomes like water sometimes, but also like light some other times. And sometimes there's two of them, and also it's one of them, and also three body problem.
I'm glad I didn't bring that up. I feel so very penis trendy.
So thank you so much to Dr. David Plimpton, PhD. Yeah, that's spelled okay. Is there any? I know that you've got your own lectures and that you're doing comedy, but is there a comedian, like someone who calls himself a comedian or improviser that you're a fan of? You want to give a shout out to, especially like social media things.
Yeah, I'm under Nate Weingarden on Instagram, Instabook, Facegram, whatever the kids are calling it. Jim Belvin also does the duo shows. He does some kind of long form comedy, sketch comedy stuff on social media. So like YouTube, he still does like YouTube videos, which I love that. And and I'm doing the duo shows. I'm doing Groundlings classes. I'm doing just other actory stuff. And I have a kid that's 4.5 months old. So that's the life I'm living right now, in dad life.
All right. So, and that, what he mentioned is there's Duo It Again. It's an improv show the second Tuesday of every month. I have even been to that. And it's a fever dream of a thing. Very fun, and good way to meet people after the show too. So that's in Los Angeles at the Lyric Hyperion. Once again, thank you so much to Dr. David Plimpton, PhD, for coming on. Thank you to our producer Cameron. Thank you to Digital in the House.